Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 6 Part 19 based on novel. So let's start. A wild and violent yuan power explosion suddenly sounded on the main road between some lush green trees. The enormous trees collapsed and a figure shot backwards in a miserable manner. That figure rubbed on the ground, forming a scar that was dozens of meters long. Only then did he violently collided onto an enormous tree. Immediately, a trace of blood flowed down the corner of his mouth. Big brother. That figure landed on the ground in a miserable manner. Two figures hurriedly flew over to the fallen man, with an anxious expression on their face. Liu Ya, protect little Ru and go. That man, who was forced back in a miserable manner, suddenly recollected himself. At this moment, his face appeared quite pale. He forced himself to stand up and shouted at the two women beside him. The two people standing beside him were naturally Su Ru and Liu Ya. They looked at the injuries on Su Wang. Their pretty faces were a little pale as they did so. Ha ha, I have wasted quite a lot of time dealing with you. Everything will likely end today. However, a soft laughter suddenly sounded within these woods, just when Su Wang cried out. Immediately, numerous sounds of wind being torn apart were emitted from around the place. 5 black shadows appeared on a large tree in front of Su Wang's group in a ghost-like manner. Their eyes looked down from above, appearing to contain a teasing expression like that of a cat playing with a mouse. Yang Mo, you should not be too overbearing. Su Wang's expression immediately changed intensely as he cried out, after seeing the 5 figures that had appeared. You can only blame yourself for taking something that you should not take. How can a mere middle-rank empire enjoy such an inheritance? A man in black robes, who appeared quite cold, was at the front of the 5 black shadows. He smilingly stared at the furious Su Wang as he laughed sinisterly. Hand over your sister and we might grant you an easy death. That man who was called Yang Mo spoke indifferently. In your dreams. Su Wang clenched his teeth. He endured the intense pain being emitted from his body as he maneuvered his yuan power. Su Ru's beautiful large eyes hurriedly became teary upon seeing this manner of Su Wang. She knew that the strength of the 5 people in front were extremely strong. Amongst them there were 3 people who had advanced into the 3 yuan nirvana stage. With Su Wang's strength alone, he was definitely no match for them. He would really be killed by this group if he continued to act brave. You've got backbone. However, such a person is destined to have a short life. A ferocious smile was slowly lifted on Yang Mo's face. In the next instant, his body wildly rushed forward. Fierce and uncontrolled palm wind directly covered Su Wang, appearing just like a storm. Su Wang hurriedly slammed his palm on Su Ru's body beside him after seeing that Yang Mo did not show any mercy. He pushed the latter away before his yuan power swelled. A fist was thrown forward, colliding head-on with that Yang Mo. Boom! Yuan power violently overflowed from the point where the palms made contact. The fallen tree leaves on grounds around them were instantly blasted into powder. Wild and violent wind directly forced back both Su Ru and Liu Ya by the side. The already pale face of Su Wang became even uglier as the wind swept. Their footsteps stumbled backwards as they spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Clearly, their injuries were quite serious. Yang Mo did not show the slightest trace of stopping, even after having injured Su Wang. A killing intent flashed across his eyes as mighty yuan power agglomerated at the tip of his finger. It appeared just like a sharp sword that penetrated toward Su Wang's throat with lightning-like speed. Big brother. Su Ru's pretty face changed a little upon seeing this scene. Her small lovely body actually rushed out in a flash and directly blocked in front of Su Wang. She was quite strong but her character was a little delicate. Hence, her aura was halved when she saw the ferocious expression of Yang Mo. What a touching scene. However, I do not know how to treat a girl nicely. Yang Mo merely smiled in a dense manner upon seeing that Su Ru had courageously stepped forward. His eyes did not contain even the slightest mercy. Instead, it held a kind of perverted joy. The yuan power on the tip of his finger became increasingly sharp as they pierced toward Su Ru's beautiful face. "Little Ru, get out of the way!" Su Wang hurriedly shouted from behind upon seeing this scene. His expression immediately changed drastically. Su Ru's small lovely body trembled slightly. Her large eyes contained a fear that could not be hidden. She merely bit her lips as she focused intently on the increasingly close sharp finger wind. In the next instant, an extremely majestic yuan power suddenly erupted from her body. The offensive ripple that was created by the yuan power directly sent Yang Mo flying. However, this kind of strength was clearly not something that Su Ru was able to completely control. Her entire body had trembled intensely after unleashing and withdrawing it. "Is that the power that you have obtained from the sealed territory? It is indeed very strong. It is really wasted on you." Yang Mo's toes pressed gently in the air. Only then was he able to result the impact. His eyes contained a fiery hot greed as he stared at Su Ru. He immediately waved his hand. "Attack together. Capture this girl." Swoosh! Yang Mo's cry had just sounded when the eyes of the four, who had yet to attack, instantly turned cold. They did not utter even the slightest nonsense as their bodies rushed out. Their attack was well coordinated as their auras surged and directly sealed the retreat path of Su Ru. Vast and mighty ruthless yuan power swept toward Su Ru like floodwaters. Su Ru's face became even paler as she watched the fierce and ruthless attacks that came pouring down like a storm. The actual strength of her body was merely at 2 yuan nirvana stage level. Other than on some occasions, the great strength within her body was also beyond her control. Therefore, she really had nowhere to run in the face of the combined attacks by these 5 people. The eyes of Su Wang behind immediately turned red upon seeing the predicament that Su Ru was in. His heart wanted to charge forward, but the churning blood within his body caused the yuan power within his body to circulate extremely slowly. All he could do was to watch the numerous merciless attacks approaching Su Ru. Just as those sharp attacks were about to pour over Su Ru's lovely body, however, an ear-piercing rushing wind sound suddenly appeared. A black shadow rushed out from the forest in a ghost-like manner. After which, he appeared in front of Su Ru. Bright golden glow erupted at this moment, transforming into a circular golden light barrier. Boom boom boom. Wild and violent attacks ruthlessly smashed onto the golden light barrier, forming numerous rapid ripples. The wind swept apart in an untamed manner. However, no matter how intense the ripple was, the gold-colored light barrier still firmly guarded the 2 figures who were within it. The glaring golden light caused Su Ru's beautiful large eyes to narrow involuntarily. Soon after, she saw the figure that was standing in front of her. Under the shining golden light, this back did not appear to be very strong. However, it contained a pine-like straightness. That manner was as though this backbone would be able to endure it even if the sky was to collapse. This was the first time in so many years that Su Ru had discovered a straight and firm back that was similar to that of her big brother, who had been protecting her. However, why was it that this back appeared a little familiar? The golden glow gradually became dim. Finally, it completely disappeared. That young figure finally turned his head over and smiled towards the young lady behind. His tone was warm. "You all right? Big brother Lindong?" Su Ru was startled as she looked at the gentle, brilliant face. Immediately, she nodded in a helpless manner. Her large eyes turned aside in panic and her face became much redder almost instantly. The light became dimmer as Yang Mo's group watched. Their eyes immediately turned cold when they saw Lindong, who had appeared in front of Su Ru. Their tone was dense as they spoke. "Where did this ignorant fool come from? He actually dares to intervene in our matter? So many people bullying a little girl. One's face should not be this thick, right?" Lindong raised his head, looked at Yang Mo's group and spoke with a faint smile. Yang Mo's eyes were deep as he stared at Lindong. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly as he slowly said, "This friend. Perhaps you ought to inquire about the background of our Windcloud Empire before you think about being a hero and trying to rescue a beauty, no? A super empire, huh?" Lindong's eyebrows were lifted for a moment upon hearing this name. Clearly, he was a little surprised. "Brother Lindong, This Windcloud Empire is extremely strong. We are already extremely grateful that you are willing to lend us a hand. I, Su Wang, do not wish for anything else. I only beg that you can bring little Ru and leave. Your big favor is something that I will never forget. I will block these people. Su Wang hurriedly cried out. He was also surprised that Lindong had intervened. These people in front of them were all quite strong. Moreover, he was aware of Lindong's strength. However, as long as he could get Su Ru to escape alive, it was worthwhile to Su Wang even if he was to end up dead in this place. I do not wish to leave. Big brother Lindong, thank you. However, you should all leave. These people are very strong. Su Ru shook her head and said, I have never done anything meaningless. Lindong smiled as he flicked a finger on Su Ru's clean forehead. After which, he turned his head and looked at Yang Mo's group. He said, sorry, but it is likely that I will have to take these 3 people away with me today. Are you certain that you possess this qualification? Yang Mo parted his mouth and spoke in a dense manner. Lindong gave a half smile as he stared at Yang Mo. He slowly nodded, I think that I do. Yang Mo's eyes instantly turned cold upon hearing this. When he was about to attack, however, he suddenly felt his heart turn cold. He could only see 2 figures on a large tree behind Lindong. These 2 figures were looking down from above. Their eyes contained a fierceness and playfulness as they stared at Yang Mo's group. That kind of gazes was no different from how they looked at Su Wang's group earlier. Finish them off. Lindong smiled as he looked towards Yang Mo. Within Lindong's eyes, a cold light gradually gathered. Soon after, his hand fell as he softly said. Immediately, killing intent spread outwards. After Lindong's soft words came out of his mouth, the Su Ru trio saw a fearsome fiendish look appearing on the honest-looking little flame's face, who had previously kept quiet and did not speak a single word. At that moment, it was as if this honest-looking fellow, who possessed a gigantic physique, instantly became a bloodthirsty azure that clawed out of hell. Upon seeing Little Flame's fiendish posture, Tsukuei swallowed the words in his mouth that he intended to say previously. From the moment they met, he could sense the mysteriousness of the Lindong trio. Furthermore, Lindong clearly was not an impulsive individual. If he knew the background of these people and he still dared to take actions, he must have something that he could rely on. In this ancient battlefield, Tsukuei had seen a lot of low-profile individuals with terrifying capabilities. He could not guarantee that Lindong does not belong to this group of individuals. Fools! When Yang Mo and his counterparts saw this scene, they could not help but mock. Recently, there are a lot of delusional people like you in the 10,000 Elephant City. However, you are the first batch of people that actually dare to provoke the Windcloud Empire. Kill them. Don't leave any survivors. With a sinister look in his eyes, Yang Mo waved his hand downward and shouted coldly. Swoosh! As Yang Mo's words left his mouth, the 4 figures beside him surged forward at almost the same time. Among these 4 figures, there were 2 who had reached 3 Yuan Nirvana stage, while the remaining 2 were at 2 Yuan Nirvana stage. Such a lineup was rather formidable. As the 4 figures attacked at the same time, waves of vigorous Yuan power extended outward rapidly and powerful repressive force engulfed Lindong and his counterparts. Apparently, these 4 figures had no intentions of being merciful. Their first attack had already displayed a rather formidable martial art. Accompanied by a killer intent, their Yuan power blasted out with a whizzing sound. Brother Lindong, be careful. Standing behind Lindong, Su Ru shouted involuntarily while her facial expression changed drastically as she witnessed this scene. Lindong looked at the whizzing incoming attack with a peaceful look on his face. Then, he waved his hand with his back facing Su Ru. He did not even show any sign of taking actions. Boom! Frantic Yuan power gushed forward like a surging mountain flash flood. However, just before it got within a few feet of Lindong, the air in front of him suddenly exploded. An enormous shadow that was accompanied by a heavy pressure came whizzing down. As a black-colored metal pole swiped across the air, its terrifying power gave rise to a remnant shadow that forcibly detonated the Yuan power attack without any flashy moves. Naturally, Little Flame was the one who suddenly took action. His attacks were not overly flashy or delicate. One-hit KO would almost be the perfect phrase to describe his attacks. The pole shadow flew across and detonated the incoming formidable martial arts. Little Flame's muscular figure landed heavily in front of Lindong. As he raised his head, one could already see scarlet rising in his eye pupils. That kind of ferocity was like an angry tiger that just escaped from its cage. The four attacking figures clearly were shocked at Little Flame's capabilities. However, it was apparent that they had a lot of experience and knowledge as well. Thus, upon seeing this sight, they did not fluster and instead, their eyes merely turned solemn gradually. Bang! Little Flame stamped his foot ferociously against the ground. Accompanied by a fiendish aura, his muscular physique surged forward with a speed that did not match his body size at all. In a flash, a pole shadow that contained terrifying force appeared before one of the Windcloud Empire's practitioners. Apparently, the sudden attack surprised that person. Resplendent golden light immediately gushed out of his body and formed a golden glowing shield around his body. Humph! However, upon seeing such a defense, a mocking snort came out from Little Flame's throat. Then, as the green veins on his arms squirmed, the pole shadow surged forward and slammed ruthlessly onto that golden glowing shield. Clank! As a metallic sound echoed throughout the area, everyone was astonished to see the sturdy resplendent golden shield shattered instantly. After being struck by such a heavy blow, that practitioner's body went flying backward while leaving behind 100 meters trail on the ground. Eventually, he flew into the jungle where it was unknown whether he lived or died. One swing of his pole killed one person. Little Flame's eyes were fierce and malicious. While the other three persons were still staring blankly at what had just happened, three powerful pole shadows ripped through the air at almost the same time without any hesitation. The crafty moving shadows landed ruthlessly on the chests of that three persons. The bright golden glow on their bodies dimmed in an instant. Cough! Phut! Three of them spitted out a mouthful of blood each. Two of them, who were of 3 Yuan Nirvana stage, could still handle the attacks. However, as for the 2 Yuan Nirvana stage practitioner, after his chest was directly struck by Little Flame's pole, his injury was clearly a fatal one. Bastard! At this moment, those two blood-spitting 3 Yuan Nirvana stage practitioners finally came back to their senses. At once, their facial expressions became malevolent-looking. However, before they could even attack out of rage, Little Flame's enormous body already surged toward them with repressive pole shadows. A sky full of frantic pole shadows swept towards them. Bang bang bang. As the three of them exchanged blows with a lightning-like speed in the mid-air, waves of violent Yuan power and gales swept across the area. The three figures were crisscrossing in the sky and every blow was deadly. Lindong looked at the crisscrossing figures in the sky peacefully. His facial expression did not show the slightest bit of worry at all. Even Lindong himself was unsure about Little Flame's current capabilities. Previously, even the Great Gan Empire's Mu Huang was defeated by Little Flame. These two Windcloud Empire's practitioners had just passed through the third Nirvana tribulation. Hence, how could they be a match for Little Flame? Brother Lin Yang is so powerful. As Su Ru saw this scene, her lucid and elegant face flushed and her eyes were filled with adoration. She must have been excited by how Little Flame was able to defeat so many practitioners at one go. Your capabilities are quite strong too. If you really want to protect your brother, you must change your attitude. On this battlefield, even if you possess capabilities, you will always be a lamb if you are weak-minded, Lindong explained plainly. This time around, you are lucky to meet us. However, what about the future then? You can't expect there's someone to save you every time you're in troubles, right? Lindong heaved a sigh. If he was weak-minded like this, he have probably died countless times over past few years. Oh. Even though Lindong's tone was not strict and even contained a tinge of gentleness, when Su Ru heard it, she did not dare to retort and eventually nodded her head obediently. On one side, when Su Kuei saw this scene, he was slightly startled. Soon after, he gave a smile as if he was feeling somewhat relieved. Bang bang. Just as what Lindong expected, the battle in the mid-air did not last too long. Under Little Flame's torrential attacks, the 2-3 Nirvana stage practitioners finally gave in and Little Flame caught their mistakes. A metal pole that contained dreadful force landed heavily on their bodies. The two figures flew backward and they spitted out fresh blood violently while flying through the air. Finally, they crashed heavily onto the ground. The energy from their collisions to the ground created arm-sized crevices on the floor that extended like a spider web. After Little Flame sent the two figures flying, he waved the pole in his hand and aimed it at the nearby Yang Mo, whose facial expression was unsettled. Then, with a deep and low voice that was filled with strong killer intent, Little Flame warned, "It's your turn now." Yang Mo's face was grave. After he saw what had happened, he was fearful of Little Flame's amazing fighting capabilities. However, soon after, he clenched his teeth and roared, "All of you are in big trouble. From the day we enter the ancient battlefield, troubles have been finding us non-stop." Lindong replied nonchalantly, "You can be stubborn now, but you will regret it in the future." Yang Mo warned sinisterly. At the same time, he surged backward and retreated. He is a smart individual. Given the current situation, he knew that he could no longer pose any threat to Lindong and his counterparts. If this situation was to drag on, he might lose his life. Lindong looked indifferently at the retreating figure of Yang Mo and raised his gaze towards Little Martin. Upon seeing what happened, the latter gave an uncanny chuckle and with a jolt of his body, he oddly disappeared. "Since troubles are coming, we shall not show any mercy," Lindong muttered softly as he saw Little Martin disappeared. His tone was filled with chilliness, which forced Su Kuei and Liu Yue to gulp involuntarily. Apparently, they did not expect the most peaceful-looking person out of the trio had the most ruthless way of handling issues. The forest was a complete mess. The auras of the 4 Windcloud Empire practitioners were close to extinguishing. Lindong ignored them as he looked towards the direction Yang Mo had fled. Though he did not fear any super empire now, he still wanted to avoid any unnecessary trouble. Hence, leaving someone alive who could notify others was something he was unwilling to do. "Brother Lindong, Yang Mo is not weak and has many cards up his sleeve." Allowing Brother Lin Jiao give chase alone, Su Kuei clearly understood Lindong's intention, hence he cautioned in a low voice. Lindong chuckled and waved his hand. In the face of Little Martin, no matter what tracks Yang Mo had up his sleeves, they would all be worthless. At this moment, Little Flame also retrieved his metal rod and his sturdy body landed at Lindong's side. The shadow cast by Little Flame's body enveloped Su Kuei and the rest, causing their hearts to feel as if they were being crushed by a boulder. Little Flame's ferocity from before had evidently left some lingering fear in their hearts. Su Ru sneaked a peek at Little Flame. The face, which was overflowing with an astonishing cruelness just moments ago, was now decorated with a simple and honest smile. With such a smile, anyone would find it difficult to link him with the terrible Ashura-like appearance from before. Su Kuei bitterly laughed as he secretly gave the Lindong trio a strange evaluation in his heart. Lindong and the others did not wait for long. Several minutes later, the sound of wind could be heard in the distance. Soon after, a figure arrived from the sky, flickering a few times before landing. Upon seeing that lazy appearance, anyone would recognize Little Martin who had previously given chase. "Is it done?" Lindong smiled and asked. "A mere guppy. He isn't even troublesome. However, I found a spirit jade on his body. It is likely that news of their deaths will reach the leader of the Windcloud Empire in no time," Little Martin leisurely said. When Su Kuei heard this, his eyes rapidly twitched for a moment before turning to stare at Little Martin in disbelief. He clearly understood how powerful Yang Mo was. Even if he struggled with all his might, he would at most be able to last for a dozen rounds against Yang Mo. Yet, this Yang Mo was actually a guppy in the eyes of Little Martin. Are they truly from a low-ranked empire? Su Kuei bitterly laughed in his heart. The fact that the Lindong trio came from a low-rank empire was simply unbelievable. From their mannerisms, Su Kuei would not doubt it if he was told they came from a super empire. Lindong nodded his head, unsurprised by how the situation had developed. Even if this information was not sent back to the Windcloud Empire, they would not be able to hide it for long. Brother Lindong, this time around, it is all thanks to the three of you. Sukue will remember this debt, and if there is any chance in future, I pledge on my life that I will repay it. At this moment, Sukue gradually became clear-headed again. With a serious expression, he solemnly clasped his fists together towards Lindong and declared, "Big brother Lindong, thank you." Suru's huge eyes stared at the Lindong trio as she also spoke up in gratitude. Lindong laughed and glanced at little Martin. This time, they had acted mostly because of little Martin. This fellow was no charitable saint. If there was no motive, the chances of him being a good person was extremely tiny. In response to Lindong's glance, little Martin grinned a little but did not speak. Yet, his flickering gaze allowed anyone to know that he was definitely up to something. "What do you plan on doing next?" Lindong looked at the Sukue trio and inquired. "We had intended to head for the central area of the ancient battlefield. However, due to the past events, we could only flee." Sukue painfully smiled as he explained. "Anyone who came here would dream of being taken notice of by the super sects, like carps dreaming of leaping through the Dragon Gate." Sukue and his party had similar intentions, but due to the Windcloud Empire's obstruction, they were unable to cross the 10,000 elephant city. "We also plan on going to the central area of the ancient battlefield. If you want to, you can follow us." Little Martin smiled and offered. Lindong was momentarily stunned. He clearly did not expect that little Martin would take the initiative to invite them. However, he did not say anything in objection. After all, he had some rather good feelings towards the pure and innocent Suru. The Sukue trio were similarly stunned. They stared at little Martin before turning to Lindong, slightly hesitant as they replied, "The Windcloud Empire have targeted us. The fact that you have acted to save us today has already brought you trouble. If we continue to follow you, I'm afraid. Since trouble has already come, what would a little more be?" Lindong chuckled and said, "Moreover, don't you feel unfairness from being blocked off from 10,000 Elephant City? Of course, only if you trust us." "Brother Lindong, what are you saying?" Sukue hastily interjected. He looked to his side at Suru before clenching his teeth. "Since Brother Lindong has already spoken, then let us follow you. However, I'm afraid that we will cause you much trouble on your journey." "Big brother Lindong, thank you." Suru's attractive face was full of joy. Her huge eyes gazed at the Lindong trio, filled with sincerity and gratefulness. This caused Lindong to feel a little helpless, while little Martin released a hollow laugh and averted his gaze in a slightly unnatural manner. Truth be told, he was eyeing the enormous power hidden within Suru's body. Although he had no intentions of snatching it away, when Suru learned to control that power, her future accomplishments would not be small. If she were to aid them at a time when they needed it the most, what they would have gotten in return was a debt of gratitude that could never be measured. This kind of exchange was something the sly and crafty little Martin was naturally very happy to do. "Heh, since we are not too familiar with 10,000 Elephant City, having someone to guide us will be ideal." Lindong laughed before turning his gaze towards the distance. "It is getting late, shall we go?" "Sure." Upon hearing this, Sukue hastily nodded his head. He swept into the air, taking the initiative to show them the way. Behind him, Lindong, Suru and the rest swiftly followed. While on their way to 10,000 Elephant City, Lindong looked towards little Martin, his lips slightly moving as a soft voice echoed in the latter's ears. "What do you plan on doing?" When he heard Lindong's voice, little Martin merely chuckled. "Grandfather Martin is doing this for your sake. The 100 Empire War is no ordinary showdown. If you want to obtain victory, you not only need an overwhelming strength but also some decent companions. Miss Suru has strong hidden potential. If groomed a little, she will be a great asset in the 100 Empire War." Lindong skeptically glanced at little Martin. How could this heartless fellow possibly be so kind? Normally, this kind of spirit seal power from ancient times is very demanding towards the inheritor. Yet, this little miss was able to fulfill its requirements. This is no easy feat. I believe that even if you encountered it, your chances of fulfilling the requirements will not exceed 50%. Under Lindong's skeptical stare, little Martin paused for a moment before continuing. "So powerful. Lindong was also a little shocked. He had quite a bit of confidence in himself. Hence, he never expected that little Martin would say that his chances would not exceed 50%. Among the people you have come into contact with all these years, there are only 2 individuals who have greater talent than this little miss. Oh. Lindong curiously turned his eyes. Suru was already so highly evaluated by little Martin, to think that there were others who were even better than her. One of the 2 is closely related to you, the one you had a night of passion with, Ling Qingshu, while the other is your sister, Qingtan. Ling Qingshu and Qingtan. Lindong opened his mouth before forcing a smile. Ling Qingshu's background is not ordinary. I have nothing to say if her talent exceeds my own. However, that last Qingtan's cultivation is rather normal. TCH, if we truly talk about talent, that lass is so far ahead of you that she wouldn't even see your silhouette if she looks back. Some things will not reveal themselves from the start. Little Martin curled his lip, glancing at the depressed appearance Lindong displayed as he rubbed his nose. With a grin, little Martin spoke, although talent is important, solely relying on it is not enough to become a top practitioner in this world. One's character and unyieldingness etc. are also crucial, and you are better than Qingtan in these aspects. Lindong smiled, as the gloominess on his face retreated little by little. Yet, his eyes were still slightly deep as he softly said, the price to reach such a stage is too high. Qingtan's talent might be higher than my own, but I do not wish for her to journey too far on this road. As her elder brother, it is enough that those hardships can be bared by myself. If anyone bullies her, just I alone will be sufficient. Isn't that a little too much? If you don't allow her to try, how will you know if she will like it or not? Little Martin said in response. Lindong spread out his hands, declining to argue with little Martin. He had left Qingtan in the Great Yang Empire as he believed that that lass will be able to peacefully live out her life in such a place. As for the wind and waves of the outside world, he would be the one to face them. However, as Lindong held these thoughts in mind, he did not know that at times, things would not proceed as he had imagined. Perhaps, in the not-too-distant future, he would see another scene that was out of his expectations. Ling Qingshu. After suppressing thoughts of Qingtan in his heart, the elegant figure like a fairy that had descended from the heavens, barefooted as she stepped on a green lotus, surfaced in Lindong's mind. She was his first woman and Lindong's feelings for her were extremely complicated. This kind of woman was perfect and flawless, but it was because of this perfection that one could only gaze at her from afar. Towards such a perfect woman, Lindong chose to respectfully keep his distance. However, because of that unforeseen event in the old tomb, a small blemish had surfaced in her perfection. It was the appearance of this tiny blemish that had broken Lindong's respectfully distant manner. Unknowingly, that beautiful woman had left an unerasable mark in his heart. From that time, Lindong's heart held a thought that would seem extremely bold and daring to others. He would make this goddess his woman. Lindong had walked out from the Great Yang Empire. Without taking even a single glance back, he had come to this chaotic and battle-ridden ancient battlefield. The fact that he wanted to once again stand before that woman and tell her those words he had said on the mountaintop outside of Yang City were not the frivolous words of a youngster, played no small part in this decision. Ling Qingshu, the 100 Empire War you spoke of will not stop me. Lindong raised his head and looked towards the brilliant sun in the sky, a fearless smile slowly forming from the corners of his lips. At that time, I will stand before you and tell you, a woman that I've slept with will definitely be mine. In that year, a blood-red setting sun shined down onto a mountain peak. A young man gazed at the elegant and beautiful woman before him and fearlessly declared with passion. In that moment, the feeling of tainting a goddess had felt incomparably wonderful. This video will end here.